Hi everyone, and welcome back to another appointment with Vacation Rental Rocket. This time, I'd like to talk about something that may sound strange, but I can assure that it's not that strange. This time, we have a special guest that will talk about a special topic. We have today directly from San Francisco, US, Joh Hearty, Business Development Manager of Origin. Good morning. Good morning in
Good
your case,
morning.
because here is afternoon.
Yeah.
Good morning, John. In this video, we are going to talk about blockchain and vacation rental. So these are two topics that recently have been presented together in many occasions. And in my opinion, the most relevant, I would say, is Trips, which is the first decentralized booking platform. Sorry, I'm translating from Italian because
No problem.
the concept of this platform has been designed in Italy. So this is a project that this is held from our friend Luca De Giglio that I hope many of you know, that has been presented a few weeks ago in Venice together with you, John, right?
Yes.
So actually, Trip is going to use Origin as the main platform to support their project. So Origin is a software design in US to support these kind of projects. So John, could you please tell us a bit more about Origin? And please use words that all of us, ignorance of blockchains, may understand. So,
Yes. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you for having me. Really excited about Origin, of course, and the vacation rental space as well. So at Origin, we are building a platform on top of the Ethereum blockchain to allow developers and businesses to easily create decentralized marketplaces. And what
okay,
that means is essentially being able to remove the middleman from these transactions. So, for example, think about Airbnb.
okay,
You have a host and you have a guest, and many people talk about Airbnb and say that it's peer to peer, but the truth is that Airbnb is sitting in the middle. And
used to be, maybe used to be. The-
maybe, yeah. It's definitely from a technology perspective and just from a business perspective, they sit in the middle of the transaction. And they do this for a number of reasons. Number one, they want to collect as much data as possible, and they want to be the owner of that data because this is exactly how they monetize. So by being the owner of this data, they're able to sit in the middle of these transactions and collect transaction fees that can get pretty high, sometimes upwards of 20% or more.
yeah,
So we want to use the blockchain to allow for these two parties, in this case, the guests and the hosts, to transact directly with each other without the need for this middleman collecting these transaction fees. So we are going about this by creating a standard, a protocol for any type of two-sided marketplace. So although we are specifically focused on a few verticals like vacation rentals and home sharing, this
okay,
platform can really be used for anything that is peer-to-peer. So something as simple as Craigslist, or in the future, something like Uber, we hope will be built on a blockchain-powered platform like Origin.
okay,
So the way we're going about doing this is we're building a set of smart contracts, which are essentially just the mechanism that allows the two parties to transfer money to each other given certain conditions. So, for example, I may only want my money released to the host once I've actually stayed in the home.
mhm,
So in order to do this, we use a smart contract built on the Ethereum blockchain. On top of this, we are building basically developer tools. So tools to make it much easier for a developer to build one of these marketplaces, even if they don't really know how to interact with the blockchain. Many developers don't quite yet understand the blockchain. They don't know how to write a safe and secure smart contract. However, most developers know JavaScript. And so we're building a JavaScript library that will make it very easy for these developers to interact with the blockchain and build one of these decentralized marketplaces.
mhm,
Another initiative that we've started recently is actually directed towards non-developers as well. So maybe you just don't know how to code, but you want to create one of these marketplaces.
Mm-hmm.
So we're creating a marketplace builder that will allow, with just a few clicks of the mouse, it will allow anybody to create one of these two-sided decentralized marketplaces. So maybe you are a property manager or something like that, and you want to create your own portal to send your guests and your hosts to, so that they don't have to pay these transaction fees. This is something you could do building on top of Origin and using this marketplace builder. And the last thing that we've done is we've actually built an application ourselves on top of all of our technology. So if you go to dapp.originprotocol.com, you will see a working version of the marketplace that we've created. It's a very basic buy and sell style marketplace that is not quite ready for vacation rentals. This will be happening in our upcoming releases.
Okay.
But you can see the technology at work, and you can be able to go in there and play around with it and actually transact.
So for all our friends programmers that are developing platforms for the vacation rental world or market, we can repeat the website where they can find this information is app.
Yeah, so it's dapp.originprotocol.com.
Okay.
And yeah, and the idea here is, if you're a developer and you want to build a two-sided marketplace specifically on the blockchain, there's no need for you to rebuild all of the things that are common to all marketplaces. So why should you have to build your own reputation system, your own escrow system, your own identity and dispute resolution systems? Rather, we think that it makes a lot more sense to let us do that heavy lifting and let the developers focus on what is specific to their marketplace. Things like onboarding their users, acquiring users, making sure their users are happy, getting buyers and sellers on the network. So we think it will allow these developers to go to market much more quickly and focus on what they're best at. So in order to do this, we have assembled an amazing team. One of our founders was the 25th employee of YouTube and the third product manager there. Both of our founders have raised venture capital and been through acquisitions from companies like Google and Walmart.
Wow.
And we've also recently hired some amazing senior engineers, including a guy named Yu Pan, who was the co-founder of PayPal.
Wow.
And the first employee of YouTube. So it's a stellar team, some really, really high quality engineers and people that have shipped products to millions of users before. I think it's really important to understand that this high level of talent working on this.
So you are committed to develop a really, really extraordinary platform to develop the future of internet, I would say, right?
Yes, that's a great way to think about it. These engineers kind of built the internet that we use today. Some people call Web 2.0, but things like PayPal and YouTube that everybody uses today. They're really excited about the technology. They're not here because they're chasing the money or anything like that. They're here because the technology excites them, and they are really fascinated with this idea of building a new internet built on top of the blockchain that will allow many, many things. One of the first things that it really enables is lower transaction fees in marketplaces, which is very powerful. It puts more money into the host's pocket and to the guest's pocket.
Especially in a market like vacation rental, as we said, there are a lot of middlemen in the 360 degrees, in the check-in, check-outs, in the cleaning fee, distribution fees, and there are a lot of fees. So this kind of technology can help a lot to reduce those middlemen, right?
Right. There are tons of fees. There are tons of middlemen. And we're excited about how blockchain can help not just cut out every middleman necessarily, but replace those that are there just to collect rent, right? They're just sitting, adding value. So we want to be able to replace those middle.
I lost you. Okay, now you're back.
Might have cut out. Okay, I think we're back now. All right. Okay. All right. So one of the other reasons that we're really excited about how this can affect marketplaces is that it can redistribute value much more fairly within the network. So if you think about an Airbnb or an Uber, who got rich from Airbnb and Uber? The investors, the founders, and the early employees. But where are the first drivers? Where are the first guests and hosts of Airbnb? Well, they're probably still driving for Uber or still hosting on Airbnb today, and probably making less money than they were on day one, even though they were integral in helping create this network. So with cryptocurrencies and these new incentive models, you can actually allow everybody that participates in this network, especially those that participate early, to benefit from the health and the growth of the network over time. So we're really excited about how we can redistribute value more fairly. And some of the last two reasons, which I think are very important to the vacation rental space, are promoting access. So the first is free and open commerce. Airbnb is not available everywhere. It's banned in certain cities. Certain cities regulate it heavily. In San Francisco, 50% of the listings from Airbnb were removed in one day. And this was possible because Airbnb is a single point of failure. It's one place that the government can go to and say, we're going to fine you every day for every listing that is not registered with our city. And whether or not you agree with their reasoning and whether or not they should have done that, it's scary to know that there's one place to go that the government can remove so many listings so quickly. And it hurts the consumer and the guests and the hosts at the end of the day. They're the ones that really get hurt by this type of regulation. So we don't think this should be done at the technology level. And we think it should be done at the local level, right?
Yeah.
And the last piece for access is the unbanked. There are billions of people in the world that do not have access to these marketplaces because they do not have a credit card or a bank account. What they do have, however, is access to a cheap Android smartphone. And many of these smartphones will have cryptocurrency wallets. And we think that these billions of unbanked, will actually have their first experience on a peer-to-peer marketplace by using these smartphones and cryptocurrency wallets and a blockchain-powered system. And they'll completely skip the traditional financial system. They won't need credit cards or bank accounts, and they'll skip these centralized versions like Airbnb.
Wow. So you're going to disrupt many different markets. It's like a kind of transversal banks, distribution, and many different aspects of our day-to-day life is connected to, I don't know, using PayPal, using Airbnb, we're using bank accounts.
Exactly.
So Origin is going to disrupt many different kind of different markets in many different ways. So just a question. I think I see the value of Origin in many aspects, but where did you see the value of developing or offering your technology to the vacation rental industry? Where did you see the advantages or the value of giving away? I mean, trips is one example. I think there are many other. You are in touch with different platforms apart from trips, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of things we're excited about specific to this space, vacation rentals and home sharing. The first, which is what we already talked about, is that there are tons of middlemen in this process already, and we don't think they need to be there. We think that these middlemen will be forced over time to justify their fees and make sure they're adding a lot of value rather than just sitting in the middle of the transaction and collecting rent. So it's not that all of these middlemen will go away. It's just that it will be a much more fair playing field, and it will force these middlemen to really add value with what they're doing and give choice to the hosts and the guests as far as which third-party services they want to use for their transactions. So cutting out the middlemen or completely changing the way these middlemen work and are able to charge fees is one of the big motivators, and it's usually thought of as one of the most obvious use cases for blockchain, because the technology itself will allow this truly peer-to-peer transaction instead of peer to Airbnb to peer. So that's one of the big reasons, but there's many others. So in the short term, there's many issues with scaling. That's one of the big problems that comes to mind with blockchain is it's not fast enough. It can't handle, quite enough transaction speeds to, for example, build something like Uber, where you need on-demand drivers right away, and you need quick confirmation of, that the driver's going to pick you up. Something like Airbnb or home sharing or vacation rentals is much easier to tackle with blockchain because, number one, the transactions are much higher value. You're not just spending a couple bucks here and there. You're spending, a few hundred or even a few $1,000s at a time. And you're also not doing this every day or multiple times a day. It's something you maybe do, a few times a year. So you don't need something to, be able to handle millions and millions of transactions a second necessarily. So from a technology perspective, we're really excited about the fact that home sharing vacation rentals can actually be built on the blockchain in the very short term. And we don't need to wait many, many years to see these platforms come. So we're excited to work with companies like Trips, and there's a few other partners that we're working with in this space that are tackling home sharing and vacation rentals. And the last thing I would say is that, we see a future where it's not necessarily just one player like Airbnb dominating the entire world, right? We're really excited about communities like Trips that are focused on smaller markets like Italy for Trips. We have another partner named WeHome that focuses in South Korea, and they focus specifically on traditional Korean homes where you come and you stay with a Korean family, you eat their Korean food, you have a real traditional experience. And because of that, they are not as focused on collecting fees. They actually want to pass these fees on to the community. So we see that as a very exciting way to redistribute these fees. And instead of, just taking it from one middleman and giving it to another, you're actually redistributing it to the community itself. So these types of more localized, more community-focused networks are really exciting and really good applications of the blockchain and of Origin. The last thing I would say is that, like you mentioned, there's tons of middlemen. There's all sorts of different ways that providers can use this blockchain to tap into these home sharing networks. So, everything from experiences, tourism, et cetera. These are marketplaces that could be built on Origin and tap into the vacation rentals marketplaces. Things like check-in, cleaning, these are all services that could be powered by Origin. And again, rather than having one centralized entity dictating, who you're using for escrow, who you're using for dispute resolution, et cetera, we will provide optionality for the guests and hosts, and they can decide what they want their escrow to look like, who they want to use for escrow, who they want to use for cleaning, et cetera. So I think there's a lot of different ways that these services and marketplaces will be able to plug into each other, and it won't rely on one centralized entity determining all of these things.
Wow, this is really, really interesting because I'm helping other people developing platforms, and knowing that you are helping with Origin to develop platforms like this. I think this is the future of our industry. I'm absolutely sure of that. And about this, do you think that a well-established market like hotels are more prepared than vacation rental to adopt this technology?
It's hard to say. I would say most of today's marketplaces, or whether it's Airbnb or Booking.com or any of the other big players in the space, they make a ton of money from their transaction fees. So it's going to be very difficult for them to shift their entire business away from this. So it's much more likely that smaller players in the space will have a better chance of actually adopting this decentralized model that has much lower fees, and they'll have to figure out different ways of making money and adding value.
So they will start with this business model from the very beginning.
Right, exactly. And you do see some of the bigger companies starting to experiment. I think it's very clear to them that this will be part of the. For example, Airbnb has already started figuring out if they can distribute equity to their hosts, because they want to figure out how to redistribute value more fairly within their network. And this is something that happens inherently with cryptocurrencies.
I read about it a few days ago. Yeah, that's the only way they have to retain those. I mean, the most valuable active they have that are people offering their properties on Airbnb. So
exactly. And once those hosts realize that there are all other solutions that do not have transaction fees,
yeah,
it's going to be a matter of time before they at least open up to using them and slowly move more and more of their business over.
I see that because I'm dealing with that problems they on my day to day, because there are a lot of people working in vacation rental that they are looking for lower commission or not commission at all. So the opportunity to reduce dramatically the amount of commissions or eliminate completely the commissions on not P2P on these transactions.
Yeah.
I think this is part of my question. So, do you think this is the future of the vacation rental industry?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think there's much of a doubt that, this industry will become actually peer-to-peer. And it will take some time. It's a big shift that has to happen. The technology still has to improve. People need to be educated. That's probably one of the biggest barriers. Is a lot of people just don't understand blockchain. They don't understand what is required to actually use these applications. And the good news is there's some very smart teams right now that are working on some really good solutions to help make it very easy for the average consumer to use these applications. And the truth is that until these decentralized marketplaces have at least the same experience as the centralized marketplaces, or ideally even better experiences, until that happens, people aren't going to make the switch. As powerful as low fees are, it needs to be a very easy decision for them and a very easy process for them to start using these new decentralized platforms. So we understand that there's a lot of work to do, but we know that there's so many smart people working on it, and we have faith that it will, happen in the short term. And the other thing I would add is that hopefully in the future, these guests and hosts, they may not even know that they're using something that is powered by the blockchain. And they don't need to know that, right? If they are having a good experience and they're paying 0% fees, who cares if it's blockchain or anything else? As long as they're making more money. Exactly.
No one cares.
Just like you don't care, you go to Amazon and you buy something, you don't really care how it gets to your door. You just want to click a button and get what you want. And that's all you care about. So we have this in mind. And I think the general community, especially in Ethereum, they all know that this is a problem, and everybody's working really hard to solve these problems.
Okay, sounds good. So my very last question is, what do you think is the future of this industry together with blockchain in the next 5 years?
Yeah, I think, it's a lot of what we talked about. I think, number one, we're going to have much more localized and community-driven networks rather than one global leader. And I think this is exciting for a number of reasons. But, one of them is it just brings it creates an experience that's much more focused on the community and much more focused on the people rather than the profit, right? These companies like Airbnb have a responsibility, a fiduciary responsibility to make their stockholders money.
Would you call it like micro OTAs or local OTAs?
Yeah, that's one way you could think about it, is these localized OTAs, localized portals that serve a community. And, it's important for these communities. Again, Airbnb probably won't go into a lot of these communities because it's not profitable enough, right? They can't make enough money there, so it's low on their priority list. Or, governments may say, hey, we don't want Airbnb here, or whatever the case is. We want to empower these communities to actually create these home sharing experiences within their community if they want.
And local values.
Exactly.
Okay.
So that's really, I think that's going to be part of the future. I also think, like I said, that you'll see applications, you'll see these OTAs and portals powered by blockchain, but consumers, the users, may not even know. I think that's very possible in the next 5 years as well. I think there's a lot of work being done for user experience, and we're going to see, I think, a pretty significant change in the next couple of years to where you are interacting with an app and it's just like any other app you've interacted with. But under the hood, underneath it all, it's being powered by blockchain, and you're actually having this transaction with the other party with nobody in the middle. So I think even though people may not know it, may not see it, blockchain will be part of their experience in the next 5 years as well. And I hope, I guess the bigger goal and what I would love to see in the next 5 years is, like I mentioned, some of these unbanked people that have never had a credit card or a bank account, never used Airbnb, but they're experiencing these decentralized marketplaces thanks to cheap Android smartphones. Whether they're in, some rural community that has limited access to these services, I think it'll be a huge win for the entire world if we can get more of these people interacting in these online communities and online marketplaces.
Really, really interesting. I think I support 100% of what you said, because this is the vision I have for the vacation rental business. So, John, I really, really thank you for being with us this morning for you, this afternoon for me. And I think there are margin for future collaboration in terms of training, especially for those looking for, develop these platforms. So I think we need to switch from old concept of developing old-fashioned platforms with old concepts. And we need to train people, especially young people that may be the next generation of developers of the future, to start developing a platform, especially for the vacation rental business. This is my target market, but as there are a lot of people developing platforms for communities or property managers and this kind of market, I think they may look at your technology to start right away to develop the future of this industry.
And we would love to play a part in helping educate people and providing them with tools and education to help them, build these marketplaces in using these new concepts. And we do all of our communication and all of our collaboration out in the open. We're a completely open source project. So I would encourage anybody who's interested in learning more or getting involved to check out our website, originprotocol.com. All of our code is open and available on GitHub at github.com/originprotocol. And we have public weekly engineering calls that anybody can join and check out what we're working on. And in general, we're just very open. So we'd love for people to come introduce themselves, ask their questions, make sure we're providing what they need for this space specifically. We're so early right now that, a lot of our product decisions and a lot of our roadmap is going to be determined by the people in this space that want to engage and want to let us know, what they need out of a platform like this to build what they want to build. So definitely encourage everybody to reach out, say hi, give their feedback, ask their questions, and we'll do as much as we can to help provide the tools and the education that they'll need to change their business.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
All right.
Really, really, really interesting. So, John, thank you very much. I hope to see you again in Italy, maybe next year. I don't know.
Yeah, definitely.
We're always around. So, thank you very much, and have a good day. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Have a good night. Ciao.